Salutations, utopians. Hope all is well in your world. Well, it looks like Anthony Edwards did it again. He's knocked off another amazing legend in the playoffs. Last year, I was shocked when um, the Wolves came back down from 20 in the fourth quarter to defeat the one-time world champion Denver Nuggets. And this year, much to my dismay, I couldn't believe it, but they somehow beat Los Angeles, and not just beat them, but beat them on their own home court. One moment. Um, it's truly amazing what this has evolved into. We always hear about players being measured by their championships, but the playoff run without the rings that Anthony Edwards has been on has just been unbelievable, you know. And he's got the Warriors on the menu next, and there very well could be another series where he could end up winning, knocking off playoff Jimmy and Steph Curry and Draymond. Uh, but right now, I want to be the voice of clarity because I know it's easy to be a prisoner of the moment, but when at the trade deadline the Los Angeles Lakers traded off of Anthony Davis, Finney Smith was just finally getting healthy. He had 17 games of battling injuries. They had kicked it into a gear. Him and Finney Smith was flying around with Vando, and it looked like AD could actually man the center as long as that was going to be under control and as long as Finney was healthy, who happened to foul out tonight. And in that window, Palinka seeing it as we can win a championship this year, but we have no future after this playoff run. So Palinka sold high. And I know that I've had some strong opinions about Luka's tenure in Dallas, and I understood where Nico was in the mindset of making that deal. But I want to be very clear. The Lakers were within their right, and they had the right mindset moving off of AD and not waiting to do so until LeBron retired. Because even one more year is too long if you know that you don't have your next move planned, and the Lakers are not necessarily a hub for drafting and building up young prospects. They're a win now, quick fix type of franchise. And they always land the best, obviously, or some of the best. And I want to be very clear. The Lakers did not make a mistake acquiring Luka, even though his time ran out in Dallas. It was just time for a change of scenery. This isn't the same league where you can have a Dirk Nowitzki on the same team for 13 seasons before he figures it out. And though Luka is now the first international prospect player to lead the NBA in jersey sales, and LeBron was number 3. They are going home to the guy who was number 8 in sales, in Anthony Edwards. They're going home due to him and the tremendous performance of Rudy Gobert. Now, I want to be very clear. Jackson Hayes is the man of the hour. People are wondering why he didn't get minutes. Yes, he has no offensive bag, but he would have been length that could have deterred and perhaps slowed down Rudy Gobert's impressive 2020 night. I think he had like 25 or 27 points, 23 rebounds, and a couple blocks. And what was very damning by JJ tonight was him putting Maxi Keebler into the rotation before Jackson. I understand Keebler has displayed some capabilities of knocking down jump shots. He's the only consistent presence that's been in Luka's career since his arrival to the NBA. But at the end of the day, Maxi Keebler should not have been in there over Jackson Hayes, not to be an armchair quarterback. It's very questionable. Also, when Finney Smith fouled out, JJ's initial knee-jerk reaction was to put Gabe Vincent in the game instead of Jackson Hayes. Something must be going on. I know there was some legal issues prior during the season. I don't know if more things came to light about issues off the court, but JJ went completely cold turkey, and Rudy Gobert made them pay for it. This is a page out of the Belichick book where I'll lose a Super Bowl before I allow anybody to be out of line. And in the big picture, again, long run, this is probably what you need in order to establish your long-term presence to create that Pat Riley effect within the Lakers organization, who was once a one-time Laker. Um, with respect to that trade deadline, Mark Williams would not have made a difference tonight. From the standpoint, if you think you were going to win tonight's game because of Mark Williams, and I was one of the first people to speak life on him because he did have a delayed season. And yes, the Hornets have Brandon Miller and a lot of guys who are been injured. That has been the big theme. LaMelo injured, so we don't really know who anyone is. But with that being said, Mark Williams is a big athletic center who plays with a lot of energy. However, he has been injury riddled, and when you've just moved off of Anthony Davis, for one of the reasons why they moved off Anthony Davis was because of the being marred by injuries, you don't want to jump into another situation. Secondly, Rudy Gobert is a big body. So if what you have going for you is your size, but you have no offensive bag, he's not worth the draft pick. He's not worth your in-house talent, your rare in-house talent that actually you could go the distance. Not necessarily Dalton Connect is an all-star, but he's actually a decent player that you could have in your rotation, and role players are just as valuable as superstars. Dalton has that potential to stick with this team and be a fan favorite. So I can respect the decision of the Lakers reneging on the deal. But I want to be very clear. Mark Williams would not have made a difference tonight in this series. The Lakers did not have time to practice. They did not have time to go through their growing pains the way the Minnesota Timberwolves did. One thing that a lot of people left out when I had the Wolves going to the finals is that the Wolves have on that eve of the season trade, the Wolves spent they had the most games on the road to begin the year. So you get to grow through those growing pains. You get to bond together. And that's why you see Randall and Anthony Edwards lock in the way they are and end up being the prevalent duo over Luka and LeBron. There was no plays ran. The roster still needs more construction. And I'm going to be quite frank with you, the Lakers might need another year or two before they can actually be taken seriously, which is another reason why I believe Nico Harrison, if you go back to my videos a couple weeks ago, it says why this Luka reunion is comical with the Dallas Mavericks, something about comicals in the headline. And because at the end of the day, he needs more time. Whether you think it's his conditioning, whether you think it's his defensive effort, or just overall maturity in terms of relationships with the refs, he needs more time. I want to be very clear though, with that being said, tonight he put out a gutsy performance. That guy should not have been in the game. And the thing about back spasms, they wean. You can go from a lot of pain to no pain. And from everything that I gathered from when I was reading about people who suffer from back pain. So you could tell there was moments in the game where he shouldn't have even been walking on the court. And then there's other times where he's, fighting through that distraction. And so I have to say, at the end of the day, I don't think really anyone did anything wrong. The Lakers fought their tails off. It just ultimately, at the end of the day, it is the Minnesota Timberwolves' time. And that core nucleus of Nas Reed, now being Nikhil Walker-Alexander, Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley, they have earned their spot. And it's their time. And the Lakers just barely put their team together at the trade deadline. You got two key rotation pieces and another guy in Goodwin. With respect to two pieces are Finney Smith and Luka, obviously, to build this team. Jackson Hayes, I'm gonna be honest with you, I never thought he was an NBA center. Same thing with Alex Len. I'm a little disappointed they did not put Trey Jameson on that team. I think he would have been an influencing factor. But ultimately, at the end of the day, now is not the time to seesaw and switch affiliations on the Lakers or Rob Pelinka for that matter. This trade needed to be done. It was beneficial for both sides, and emotions can run high. But when the dust settles, one has to acknowledge this was necessary. And just because it didn't get to what ultimately was a win now championship. I know the timeline with LeBron is scary, and it's crazy reality to think your last point was a free throw. Certain things is a trip. Just certain things are just like wow. You know, you getting ousted in the first round. You didn't play in the All Star game. This is really the end of it. But let me be very clear. Whatever happens, this had to happen. Time is up. You see it. Anthony Davis looks very happy with his team. Kyrie was in attendance to today's game. They fought. It was gutsy. It was unorganized. They didn't have a lot of time. JJ's in his first year. Um, I don't know what some of his rotations were about, but for the most part, this first year was a success. And nothing is given in this league. And quite frankly, with all the chatter and all the noise, I'm I almost want to say I'm glad it played out like this, just to restore the collective's faith and the overall spirit of competition, because people were claiming a lot of ugly things because of because of this trade. And when people go on the internet, especially when on TV, your main bread and butter is to plug a certain market and a certain team. It really loses the faith and the trust of the collective, even though this is one of the more higher rated playoffs, and due to them allowing more physicality, I believe, it's grabbing the audience more. I think the physicality, the tussles are healthy for the game. I hope a lot of people can see why the old school people have been disgruntled. Imagine you grew up seeing this type of ball, and then one day you wake up and guys are shooting 30 footers on a fast break. This is why the old heads get upset. But you're seeing why now, because look how much more entertaining it is when guys are driving, shooting the mid range again, being physical. So the game is next year is going to be really crazy. But I'll save that for another discussion. But all in all, everything is fine and understandable. It's good. The better team advanced, and there was really nothing the Lakers could do because it's just a new set of problems. But at least now you have a franchise cornerstone piece as good as any, and that's what Luka is. He's as good as any star in the league. For all his, setbacks, there's ways to counter it. Obviously, you're gonna have to structure this roster around him, and you're going through a pivoting transition phase. I don't know if they can win one more ring within the next year or two of LeBron, if assuming he comes back. I really don't know if he will now at this point. But it was so unceremonious. Like, we're not gonna get a farewell tour or nothing. But at the end of the day, the Lakers did what they were supposed to do, and now it's up to the people to wait and see how this offseason play out. Fun fact: Shams did a opening pitch for the Chicago Cubs, and one of the questions that was asked, "What was your favorite trade?" He said, "My next one." They said, "When do you anticipate the next trade?" "Expect June." So there's definitely something gonna happen, whether it's Giannis, KD, or something pertaining to the Lakers. There is going to be some ground breaking moves that will be happening. This interview came about on TikTok. All right, Utopians, I try to do better next time. Have faith, LA fans. Global out.